important. Why wouldn't they? They have no idea why they can't be Christian or the danger it poses, because Hans doesn't feel compelled to clarify why this is a prerequisite that trolls can sniff out the blood of Christians. Before anyone goes out on another hunting trip at night, they need to spend at least a day getting trained up. Trolls 101. Troll types, characteristics, dangers, how to survive, strategies, tactics, equipment, contingency plans. One day won't set Hans back much. People for them not getting Hans or themselves killed. Thomas also wants to get that bite wound checked out at a hospital. Of course, they don't do any of this. Thomas is for just jump into his Land Rover, head out into the desolate wilderness without any weapons or intel. Tommy complains about sitting on something, pulls out a landmine. It's okay though. Hans says it wasn't armed. This is the start of the great. spotlight. His flash gun isn't that reliable. If I was on the troll security service, I'd be bringing thermal and night vision goggles. I mean, the students had a night vision video camera for fuck's sake. And you, a professional troll hunter, are wandering dark forests at night with your naked eyes looking for well-camouflaged woodland trolls. I'd also bring a partner for backup, an amped-up version of the flash gun, since its current power level is clearly insufficient, and a backup 600 Nitro Express double-barrel element gun in case the batteries were having trouble in the wall. I'd also put far more effort into concealing my body odor, briefing my team and giving them UV flashlights they can use to defend themselves if they got separated from Hans or he was killed. Something like have a brain gun in dying light. Hans radios in the kill, and the wildlife ward shows up with a dead bear to cover the cattle fields in the area, plant some fake bear tracks, and have Hans put the finishing touches on. Ben is pretty pissed that Hans let the students in on their secrets. I'm guessing Hans hasn't filmed the trolls himself and gathered evidence of their existence, but he should have. His government employer is willing to let innocent people die and cover up their deaths, and he tries to keep the troll information on a dead man's trigger.
Toyota's on the pond. Now's the time to get excited with Toyota.
Or in the event that the government wants to tie up loose ends and make him go missing as well, they shouldn't even be keeping all the film on their person in the first place with how close they are to getting killed on a daily basis. Hans finally briefs them on the situation. He's hired to hunt the trolls that come out of their designated territories and threaten livestock or people. He tells them that there are different types, subgroups, and variations of trolls, but they are all unintelligent predator animals. Still, he doesn't provide any useful tactical information. Hans then gives them the tiny home tour of his camper. The furry the ad on his ceiling is a troll tail, which he used to maintain the troll stench, so he can approach them without them noticing. Why not use a troll hide to make a hat, jacket, pants, boots, or cape? Then you wouldn't have to muck up your stove with troll goo onto the living quarters. His bed is lit up with UV lights, which are on 24/7, even while he sleeps, because he's afraid of the dark. That is insanely unhealthy, and if anything, a lit-up camper would attract the trolls. If you truly lived in immense fear of a troll stomping out your camper while you slept, it'd make more sense to have UV lights on the outside like Will Smith in I Am Legend. At his dining table, he's got a map and the local newspapers, which he uses to find any suspicious events like dead livestock, smashed bridges, ripped out trees, etc. Anything that's a potential lead for the trolls he's hunting. It's honestly not surprising that he only got to implement satellite tracking. The TSS can track all the trolls with a computer and know exactly where the strays are. The gestation for the trolls is 15 years, so it's not like they're trying to track rabbits. Hans concludes the tour, and the team heads out to find the sick wrinkle bitch they were hunting before the tussle lad almost made a meal out of them. Since they aren't satellite tracking the trolls, Hans has to drive around aimlessly, climb up trees to find deformations where tourists use sketches of valleys to see if anything large has moved, and check this tire and turbo grabbing by the rubbing troll. It's incredibly inefficient. This is the wrinkle bench the troll vet wanted a blood sample from, so Hans ropes some sheep up as bait and films his video armor. Don't tell me his random plan is to poke it in the ass and it's jumping on the sheep. And yet he can't use the flash gun because turning the troll into stone kind of ruins the whole blood sample thing, but you could use that landmine you left on your passenger chair when Thomas accidentally saddled. The troll doesn't need to be alive for in one piece to get some blood. That or hit it with the elephant gun, since this is a state-sponsored hunting trip and trolls are serious big game. I don't even think it'd be crazy to requisition some military surplus anti-tank weaponry like an M72 long rocket propelled grenade launcher, break, use concrete wireless rifle. The center mass shot from one of these bad boys is going to be game over for the troll. Want to get started on how credits. Didn't we forget what happened to Thomas's car? At this point, he was on a suicide mission. If the group gets in a position and rolls everyone shut the fuck up and stop moving when the troll is near the kill zone, please. Yeah, Hans' plan really was to walk up and give the Brackle fans a colonoscopy while it's eating. Gee, should have seen that coming. Worst strategy ever. He should have just poured the Christian blood on the old fresh landmine and kicked back. Wow, the armor actually worked. Sheer luck, though, because the troll had been completing more effort and the chilling war decided to tenderize Hans's meat, the armor would only succeed in being a ground meat container. Hans rolls into town and engorges in an all-you-can-eat buffet. Inside time, the government makes a Norwegian troll version of Jurassic Park. I know, Jurassic Park always ends badly, but as long as they hire a competent security advisor, track the trolls, implement redundant lines of defense, and station a couple Leopard 284 tanks outfitted with coax UV spotlights nearby, they should be good to go. Based on the deforestation, Hans thinks it was a few trolls running north. Do Hans and company do any prep work or upgun themselves at all? Of course not. Hans walks into the forest at night without any weapons at the ready. If 3 trolls stampede out of that tree line, you won't have time to fumble getting that flash gun out of your ass before you become part of the Earth's crust. Hans didn't even go down to the electronics store to pick up a video camera that had a night vision mode after seeing the kids put it to good use. I think it's safe to say that we're using the term professional very loosely. The students need to get closer to Hans. Sadly, he's the only person that can potentially protect them. He can't do that if they're 50 yards away. Hans tracks the troll footprints with hand in mind. He wants to go in and search it, but his crew is justifiably concerned. Hans confidently says, "Don't worry, there's no trolls inside." 1. How would you know? 2. What if they come back while you're inside? 3. If this is a search and destroy mission, there's no reason to go inside an empty mine cave. Just trap them into the cave until the sun up when they come back to sleep. You have access to explosives too. I'm sure you can get your hands on enough TNT to collapse the mine entrance and entomb the troll. So you didn't know if the trolls were home. I'm getting those vibes that the guy being fake nose-ish and does know as much as he lets on or would like you to think. Hans says the whole pack of troll lives here. Yeah, I figured that out without having to go into the cave at night. What are we doing in here again? Flash guns don't have enough juice to stem the wall. Better find a small tunnel to cozy into until daybreak when you can make a break for it. Just their luck. And the trolls lays down right in front of their exit. The trolls haven't even sniffed them out yet. Maybe they're just too tired or callous of taking any chances. Dude's going hard on the troll stench. Without Nancy, Thomas, Johanna, and Cal are, there's no way they're surviving until morning. It's also a giant risk that the troll wakes up and smells their ever-increasing stench of human body odor. They need to wait a little longer until the sun rises before they make their escape. They might be able to tiptoe out without the trolls noticing, but it's too risky. If one of these morons accidentally bounces the boom mic off one of the trolls' noses, even if they escape the mine, they'll get run down in the dark forest. Cal is only leaving them with 2 options. They can either put him down or run. Nobody has the stomach for the first option, so they break for it. The trolls wake up from all the commotion and start chasing them. Hans's flash gun barely has enough power to keep the trolls off their asses. If anyone stumbles or falls behind, they're dead.
There comes a place and a time in every chef's career where you have to ask yourself this question of who am I?
They feel obligated to say, "Where is your gun now?" It's a good thing the sun was up or they'd all have been trolled. Cal should have known that being Christian was going to get hit or everyone else killed. That was a good move. You knew the danger. Hans knows that he doesn't figure out why the trolls keep rolling into the it's just the beginning. When they get back to their camera, they find Finn Franklin and Brett looking for their films. They're going to need to watch their backs and start distributing the films to secure locations, which will be released if they aren't heard from in 24 hours. It's clear that the government is willing to sacrifice some human life to keep their secret. Thomas calls up his friend to fill the open camera position because he can't hold the camera himself, and it's totally worth risking some random person's life so he doesn't have to. When she arrives, Thomas asks her if she's Christian or believes in God. Bro, why didn't you ask her before she showed up? Hans says that he doesn't know if her being Muslim will be a problem, so again, let's do it live. We'll do it live! Fuck it. They are potentially going to be up against either multiple trolls or the infamous yacht owner, a giant 200-foot tall troll that only Hans has seen. Hans preps his Land Rover with a spiked roll cage and a UV spotlight turned on the roof. The cage looks cool, but I doubt its effectiveness against a pack of trolls that mangled Thomas's car like it was nothing. If they need the cage, they're dead anyways. They would be better off lightning the car so they can evade the trolls' command. The mounted spotlight is a solid addition. The threat they're facing, I try to reposition a chopper with a UV mounted searchlight. Personally, I wouldn't want to be on the ground facing off with a yacht. The TSS's budget is out recently. For some inexplicable reason, the power station manager fields questions from the poverty troll hunting version of Blade. Hans wasn't even given a non-Jesus government badge or anything. Thomas, knowing the real reason, but being a cheeky punk, asks the manager why the power lines were in a circle in a desolate region. The manager honestly has no clue. As long as you get your paycheck and don't ask stupid questions, right? I know Hans and Ben are at odds right now, but you think with the yacht or the loose fit could procure some temporary hardware for Hans. Puts a couple rocket launchers into it and installs piles of power lines that bashes it in. He can broadcast through the entire city. Hans and still crew arrive in the remote TSS cabin, hang out all night. When the hunt begins, Thomas gets lightheaded and almost collapses just as they hear the yacht heading towards them in the distance. Yeah, you should have gotten that disgusting pus-filled pipe checked out a long time ago. You were called in by a human. You know they're disgusting creatures. Getting checked out at the hospital is still great. Now you're succumbing to it at the worst time possible. Small animal clinic brings Hans and tells him that the troll had rabies in his blood. Hans speculates that this was causing the Yadar and the other trolls to behave erratically and aggressively. That's also really bad for Thomas. As a person begins showing signs and symptoms of rabies, the disease is nearly always fatal. Hans unveils his roof-mounted UV spotlight turrets. Alright, that's pretty badass. Hans is like the Norwegian troll hunting version of perfect overlord. The only singular problem with it is to drive all you shoot, because there's no way you can assume that this will reliably kill the Yador. Definitely not one of those dipshit students. See, this is where having a partner comes in handy. He drives head-on at the giant troll without telling his camera crew, so they run after him yelling, thinking he's leaving them. As expected, they didn't use the precious time before nightfall to strategize together. Now everyone's getting caught off guard by each other's actions. Unbeknownst to his crew, Hans was trying to lure the giant away from them and what he wanted. If you didn't want the crew to come with you, you should have said that earlier. Now they're running around like chickens with their heads cut off and left the lights on in the cabin. If the Yadar didn't see them before, it does now. Hans continues to try to lure the giant away from the students with some gospel music so he can safely fight it in the open. Apparently none of the kids got the message because they're still running around and screaming like jackasses. Despite them, Hans gets his stance. The searchlight doesn't have the power to stop it. While it's stunned, he jumps back behind the wheel to get the hell out of there before he turns into red gum at the bottom of its foot. This is exactly why I said he needs to have somebody to drive when he shoots. Hans swoops back in to pick up his camera crew and reloads his spotlight with another set of batteries. He hops back in and guns it with a piece right on their asses. Closing in on them even with a rover at full speed. What did I say about removing the spike gauge to lighten the vehicle so it can go faster? That beauty cage will do shit to stop this thing. Some moron runs out in front of their car to catch a ride out of the giant's path. Dude, why would you want to get into the vehicle that's about to get stomped on by the Yador? Just let it pass and lure the giant away from you, then get out of Dodge. Now they have to slow down for him or he'll become food. Driving away isn't an option anymore. Hans fans the turret to buy them some time. Here's a bright idea. How about one of you idiots starts driving this rover out of here while Hans shoots? The UV spotlight stuns the Yadar again, forcing it to run away. Hans isn't gonna let this guy go. He tries to drive out in front of it because tactically that makes complete sense. If I was someone in the camera crew, I'd pop the door and roll out of this suicide mission. Lucky for them, the Yadar doesn't stay to finish them off. Looks like it burned its ticket. Hans rugs up and hikes towards it, licking its wounds. He better have something bigger than the flash gun from earlier. Why didn't you fire that up its gooch while you were driving behind and underneath it? Driving in front of it was just dumb. Also, it's kind of a shame he stoned it. That's a lot of good meat wasted. If he just used conventional firepower, they could have harvested its remains. I guess some of the meats on the market will blow the whole secret, though. Ben and his government goons arrived in time for loose ends. Thomas grabs the camera and everybody runs. Only Thomas successfully escapes their grabs. We just watched as the footage that was leaked out by Thomas before time for his reconstruction. Hans and the rest of the film crew were never heard from again. They say they were buried somewhere out there by the deceased Yadar. Despite this in 2010. The film crew was unnecessary. I'd actually say the footage isn't worth anything because people will just say it's fake. Hans's information about troll locations is infinitely more valuable. All said and done, I think we could have used the trolls and the shady government from Troll Hunter. Thanks for watching, and remember, if you're going to hunt trolls, Bigfoot, the Loch Ness, or whatever monster you encounter, the unlikely event is that you do run into it.
The best part of Christmas is basically the presents. They always hide it in the same exact place. And I don't want it to be a surprise next time. I thought you never saw anything. That's what I call being sneaky. Nature is all around us. It fuels us, energizes us, inspires us. Let's go. That's why I'm going into the outdoors. It's magical. It's crazy.
Magic work for small communities now. Difficult, but very much so not impossible. Now imagine humanity knocked back on its heels by one too much, not only a massive shift in global environments, but also a recurrent outbreak of a devastating disease. Despite our advanced medical technology, we were not able to prevent. In order to degrading of human society, it seems as if each city would small forces scatter feral outbursts across the planet. In the events and book and subsequent movies, Phase Runner, that's exactly what happened to most aliens on our planet. Not being the giver of life is something we consistently and without fail must rely on to keep everything in order while we try to figure out things down here. However, upset that that connection should happen, we're not going to actually rectify the issue. Throw in a disease that will destroy populations and bloodthirsty monsters, and so, a post-apocalyptic scenario that I'm sure, based on current events, we would overcome, right? Well, even if we don't, it's not to stop this video from being made. Today's episode, we will discuss what happened to Earth and why this devastating disease is Alright, let's get to it. So we all know the drill by now, but if you're a newbie, then there will be a timestamp up on the screen heading there. You can bypass the summary of these movies. And oh yes, movies. I'm covering the entire trilogy, but in the interest of time, and lastly, I'm not really introducing it. As we did, just a generalized summary of the movies. This video will be about 3 years long. But yeah, again, go into the timestamp on the screen, and I'll go directly to the actual discussion. Phase Runner. Now let's get why the the sun has never changed in terms of energy received. We're all just mega screwed. But it's definitely just not think about how furious our weather system hinges on everything staying the exact same way it is, and the universal chaos seems to reign supreme. The year is 2136, and Earth is out of nowhere based on how off guard humanity was brought to the raging solar storm with mass ejection from Earth. No idea this was going to happen, and no way to detect it. The world was plunged into strife. The solar flare was so powerful that it scorched the Earth through tropics, Cancer, and Capricorn, turning it into a desert wasteland all countries once known. Much flooding. In the first 15 minutes of the solar flare striking Earth, 4.5 billion people were lost. The magnetic field of Earth was also disastrously altered, resulting in more radiation like destroying more plant-like living organisms and animals in continents, latitudes, and doses of radiation. On top of this, it was destroying the atmosphere at those areas, resulting in dangerous storms, and random devices scattered themselves. At that time on, harsh these dangerous storms and radiation continued to ravage muscles. Those in the latitudes that weren't located between Capricorn and Cancer were spared the worst of the damages, as the ones that were left, the majority of sea crashing for most of their coalition, PSC and effort to establish order. Over time, they were able to come together and quell the issues that plagued humanity at this time, or at least ease them. But ultimately, they would make things worse. For the sake of this, after the 6th Arctic test of always gets more quickly, is able to see the virus. Its generation captured and placed on trials to study the brain activity and why they were being healed, which, yeah, it does seem like a relatively dumb idea, but hey, I suppose it could cause our work. Yeah, so let's see something about that. The first phase of the movie. We open up our story with a man that doesn't know his own name. He's in a cage and it's rising fast. After reaching the top at top speed, the cage opens as a group of young men stand around him laughing. He gets out of the cage and immediately begins running off. As he does, he trips and then looks around and finds that there's really nowhere to go. Surrounding him on all sides are massive walls that cannot be scaled. Realizing there is no escaping, he is then captured quickly by the others and placed in a holding cell until he calms down. Eventually, he meets the group's leader, Albie, and the second in command, Newt. Getting the rundown, they walk through the town as he's pointed to his current predicament. Eventually, meeting up with Chuck, the village's medic-type person, he begins to walk towards the opening in the wall after he spots it. As he begins to question what exactly it is, he's eventually stopped by the enforcer of the group, Galley. As they argue about why he was stopped, the walls begin to close, and it was revealed that he was actually just saved because if he had walked in there at night, he would have been trapped and would have been taken out by whatever is beyond the walls at night. Later that night, a celebration is being held with the group. Eventually, Galley then confronts Greedy, as he's known, and continues to call him a shank. He enters the circle and then attacks him, but eventually he is thrown and hits his head really hard. As he does, he remembers his name is Thomas, as the group can finally put a name to his face. Thomas realizes at this point that there really is no escaping the place and begins helping with the daily chores that the rest of the group are doing. As he does, he's sent to the portion of the plane. While there, he finds gravestones and then is attacked by one of the members of the group. As he apparently had been stuck and infected with the virus, the results of this are that he remembers Thomas and knows what he did. He can't articulate it very well. Eventually, Thomas is able to run out of the forest after fighting him as the group pulls the infected away. They shove him back into a walled area as the door closes, sealing his fate. The next day, Minho and Albie both go into the maze attempting to look for an escape. However, after they were in there the entire day, the group begins amassing as they do, they spot Minho, Dragon, and Albie who has been stunned and infected. The door shuts, Thomas is lost in the world and gets sealed on the other side. This turns into a whole other set of problems. Basically, being sealed in there at night isn't really a good thing. Creatures known as reavers are released, which immediately begin to hunt. Thomas is able to raise out of behind him his Minho men. Thomas chases the creature as it covers him many times. Eventually, he begins to break a wall shift that is crushing the reaver in the process. As the doors open up the next morning, they come out hearing Albie with all the rest. Albie is looking pretty infected at this point. They all immediately discuss Thomas' punishment. Galley is pretty upsetting spaghetti, seeing as Thomas pulls them down. Each thing is retribution. They continue to discuss with the elevators and sets up. This time, the girl named Teresa. She has a note saying that this was the last one, which alarms the group as things seem to be changing. Heading back to the maze, they attempt to take apart the reaver, finding that part of it is actually mechanical and the other part is flesh. Removing a stinger from its arm, they find a beeping piece of machinery marked 7 on it. Now that Thomas is a runner, Minho then goes on to show him a diorama of the entire maze. They have completely mapped it out before, but then have found no way to actually escape. However, there is a designated area that has 7 on it, which they rightly deduce that the Reaver 7 may somehow activate something. After this, they have a whole love interest thing going on, so Thomas then calms down Teresa, but nobody really cares, and he informs her of where they are, what they're doing, and Galley throws Thomas into a holding cell as part of his punishment, but is really just angry about how the balance may have been disrupted around them. The next day, Minho and Thomas head out to locate Area 7. Taking a piece of the Reaver, they end up finding a door and opening it, but are scanned. As they are, however, issues begin to arise all around them. The entire maze starts falling apart, and they barely just escape. Getting back to the glade, they find that the injection that they had gotten has actually worked on Albie's sting, saving his life. However, Albie is now privy to the truth and realizes that the maze isn't really worth leaving, which sort of bums everybody out around them. When night rolls around, the doors aren't shutting anymore, leaving them fearful that they may be completely exposed to the grievers. And exposed to the grievers they are! More doors begin opening up that night, with the main door not closing, resulting in attack on the glade. Many of the group members are ripped away and ended in the attack before a small number of them are able to barricade themselves in the town hall, which is still overwhelmed. Albie is able to save Chuck and then knock off the stinger of the griever, but ultimately be pulled out and taken. Thomas says he needs to.
The best part of Christmas is basically the presents. They always hide it in the same exact place. And I think it's supposed to be kind of a too. I act like I never saw anything. That's what I call being sneaky. How do I know? For the left help. I just reported my family's immune house.
guy shows up as he's ready to fly over a source planet to a destination. We know that destination because that brings us to phase 1 of the source trials, or as I like to call it, phase 2, desert movement. Thomas is doing what I like to do falsely, pretend I am not flying this project forward. As he slips into his battle with his mother, the city of Bell, the group of hosts touch reflect. Then he has a nightmare about being back in the elevator heading up to the lake. As he wakes up, he finds that the go back to the base of the protected, currently besieging Thomas. We move inside for some safety, but is it safety? No, it is not. While inside, they are led around by the compound agents. He mentions how they have seen how they have picked up other bases that have rescued. He then acknowledges that there is another shadow group known as Rayman, and they have resisted against them. But his group of bad guys, which they are all placed in the cafeteria. Other groups of kids calls out names. Identifies himself as Harris and it shows him what's going on. People are called or being called out what appears to be by vital signs, showing that they are still alive. Because of this, Thomas begins to become sus about the situation. It's an older game, but it still checks out. He ends up basically coming to the door and pickpockets the door, showing 2 things. 1, they're trapped. 2, it's possible by having resist. So Ranger McFriendly Jansen and his squad aren't really that nice. Thomas Harris looks pretty convinced again for finding which were selected. They are unconscious and breathing machines. Thomas finds that Teresa is also hooked up to the same machine because they hide after it is revealed that Jensen is actually working for a very much so alive Dr. Cage. She requests the subjects to follow her stuff. So after like the giant massive escape sequence, they eventually are able to make it outside the compound. They go out to drink the Kool-Aid and then take off into the desert. So Thomas is able to actually move the search team and find a abandoned building. Covered up by sand. Moving inside, they turn it on the architecture before finding the generator. As they turn it on, however, Ford has been alerted. A huge group of infected who are down there for some unknown amount of time have been stuck. They immediately give chase, running through a door. One of them then gets clawed in the guts. They're able to pull him out, and then they all hide for long enough until the Horde loses interest. However, the next day, things are looking so good for Muchacho over here as he is coughing and in some serious pain. They then move through a destroyed city as they continue to hoof it from the compound towards some mystery group known as the Right Arm that they've heard about in the mountains. Eventually, though, they're forced to carry the injured, and when they stop to rest, they find that he's coughing up black goo and blood. They pull back his shirt to find his organs are being degraded, and the infection is spreading all over his body. Then they do pretty much the worst thing possible and hand him a force multiplier and let him take himself out. I mean, the boss is going to be real here. Doesn't seem like the kind of situation where you should probably let him make that call, but that's just my 2 cents in the matter. As they walk away, they hear a shot ring out, knowing that he has met his end, and then they also left something behind that was probably pretty important for them. But out in the flatlands, they stop for a while to rest as they are all pretty dehydrated and tired. As they do, Thomas wakes up and sees lights in the distance on the mountains, thinking that it must be the Right Arm. He wakes everyone up, and they also find that a storm is moving in. Good timing, because that storm isn't like a normal storm due to the damage to the atmosphere. Lightning begins striking all around them as they run, but finally Minho getting struck. They drag him inside the building and into a horrendous smell. They're able to resuscitate him, but as they do, they find chained up infected all over the building. A woman sits out of the shadows named Brenda and asks how they like their guard dogs. They're questioned as to why they are there and then brought through the camp to their leader, a man named George. Wonders why they are there and why they are chasing ghosts in the mountains, but then deduces that they know more than they are letting on. The group is chained upside down and questioned about what they know. Thomas asks why he's worried if the Right Arm are just ghosts. George questions them about where they are coming from and then gets that they worked for Wicked, which wasn't very wicked of them because like how bad it's good. Anyways, eventually Teresa is able to swing over and focus the mechanism on Breach himself, and then she wears her rest, which is actually good timing because Wicked has arrived and besieged this new compound. Despite having to deliver this place in George City. You've got to watch and drop souls on your phone.
I'm serious.
Download and rock out off the Wi-Fi file. Try YouTube free on us. Would anyone else like to hear about how they were unprotected? I downloaded software that leaked all my private photos online, and now I'm trying to
not gonna go mad.
Particular phrase, don't take unnecessary risks, which now
Angel?
Huh?
Oh. Make sure that.
be completely the opposite of what he does later. Thomas obliges and then is shown how to get into the walls to look for ways to get into Wicked. Moving through the sewers gives them a way in, but it's still a long walk. In Wicked, Teresa's currently viewing a new compound that she has created to see if it will get rid of the virus. Injecting a little girl who's infected with it shows promising results at first. As
What are you
she
watching?
bonds with her, she begins feeling better and
A
better.
video?
Meanwhile, outside, Thomas's group locates Teresa inside
What are you
the
talking
building,
about?
realizes that she's their only way
What are you
in. Thomas
talking
then
about?
protests because, you know, he's lovesick and all that nonsense.
Which
The rest of the
movie?
group understands, but they just got
Maze
straight up
Runner. You probably never
betrayed.
seen
Why
that
does he
before.
care? Love interest. Oh, Newt begins acting aggressive
Oh,
towards
that's
Thomas.
just
You know what movie?
interesting.
No, hopefully that won't be
What,
an
it
issue
sound
later, but
interesting to you?
surprise, surprise, he's infected and his mental abilities begin to degrade over time, with the only thing saving him is his
What,
but that
did,
only serves
did you
his
say
own
Blaze
gain.
Blue?
Back in Wicked, Minho is looking
I said
up,
Maze Runner. You can't
Teresa
hear?
grabbing something off the table
I guess you
crosses
can't hear
right
because
out
of the
the attack.
video.
Teresa's then called back into the medical lab with the girl who was injected,
Yeah.
now quickly succumbing to the virus faster than normal, meaning that her injection actually did nothing to help and possibly made it worse. As
I
Teresa
can't understand you with that video.
gives chase, resulting in her reduction. Inside of the city, Dr. Page is basically ready to give up. The virus has continued to mutate.
Can you
Now
pause
it's
it?
infecting the city. The immunes won't be enough to save everyone, so she essentially just says screw it. However, Jansen continues to struggle and begins to hunt everyone, as now he has really no direction on how to do anything, and knows he will be infected as the virus is airborne. Back at the compound, Teresa removes Thomas's chip so that they can sneak into the building. She remarks on how Brenda is still alive and how it's not possible for her to still be this healthy if she hasn't gotten a dose of serum in quite some time. She then realizes that there must be a cure, and she pretty much burned all her bridges. With Teresa, they end up freeing all the immune people, escaping on a bus before being picked up by a crane and then dropped outside the walls. Dr. Page recognizes Thomas as he pulls a force multiplier out, but at that moment, Jansen walks by and then opens fire on him. They eventually are able to find Minho while fleeing and rescuing him after he takes out security. Really, they're rescued by Minho, who then takes out security. Anyways, running from the cops, they corner themselves in a room as security tries to break in. When they do, they end up jumping out the window to the water below, which begs the question, they're really that far away, why not just open fire on them below, outside the window? Anyhow, things at this point are getting pretty heated. Galley's boss then rides a truck full of fuel into the wall, detonating himself in the process, which seemed mildly unnecessary, but it gets the job done. It almost seems like possibly, though, was a unnecessary risk. Anyways, people flood into the walls, and a mini war breaks out in the streets. While this is going on, Newt is finally succumbing to his infection. Minho runs ahead to grab the serum to save him, but it is too late. Thomas is forced to fight Newt and ends up stabbing him in the chest, ending him as he became ultra violent. Running back inside, Thomas confronts Dr. Page, and he is told that his blood is the cure before he can take her out. Jansen then shoots her. He tranquilizes Thomas and then brings him upstairs, which, by the way, Jansen literally comes down a hallway. How is this a shock to Thomas? That's a long hallway. Anyways, he takes the serum, and before he can inject himself, as he is infected, Teresa knocks him onto the ground momentarily and frees Thomas. However, he gets pretty much right back up and then starts fighting Teresa. During the fight, Thomas then takes a few shots to his guts. Ouch. Teresa then distracts Jansen long enough for Thomas to throw and break the glass of the infected holding cell, and they escape and then eat Jansen. Escaping to the roof, Teresa is now able to throw Thomas onto the VTOL before the building collapses and she meets her end in the pile of rubble. Honestly, she probably could have made it, but maybe she just straight up deserved that. Anyhow, all the kids escape, humanity is virtually screwed, and then they have to set up shop on an unknown island where they can rebuild society that is immune to the the virus, well, the planet is still mostly deep fried, so that's going to probably have some pretty large impacts for centuries to come. Okay, wow, so that was like the longest summary I think I've ever done, but essentially you're caught up now with what this series is. Honestly, it's kind of like the Hunger Games or Divergent, probably. It's definitely on the same playing field as them, but kind of having the added infected made things pretty cool overall. But let's discuss now why humanity's galaxy brain idea to introduce an uncontrollable virus, which we had no counter for, was quite possibly one of the most dumb ideas we've ever had as a species. First things first, to know about the virus is its name. Seeing as it seemingly came out of nowhere shortly after the solar flare that wrecked our society, people began calling it the flare, which is a lot better than its actual name, which is what it's known as, virus VC321XB47. Just doesn't have the same ring to it. Upon being released on the unsuspecting populations, this virus was seemingly chosen at random. As a result, it would mutate and become way more dangerous than what it ever originally was supposed to be. I mean, I get that possibly a lot of scientists were gone and the staff at Wicked looked relatively young, but this line of thinking was so horrendous, there's no way it would have been properly thought out and tested. But the results of this poor planning resulted in a disease that wasn't just aiming to take out 30% of the population to stabilize resources, but
Food is more than nourishment. It's how people connect. Yet 50
resources, but likely resulted in a genetic bottleneck for humanity, like the one we had almost like 70,000 years ago, that resulted in only 2,200 humans actually being left on Earth. Oh yeah, we came real close to extinction. Anyhow, the virus originally had horrible intentions, but the process should have not been too bad, resulting in a quick and painless death. It would eat at the brain, destroying neural tissue in key areas, likely in the medulla oblongata, resulting in your heart stopping and breathing also stopping as well. This would have dropped people quickly before the immune system even had a chance to get into play, resulting in those desired outcomes. However, as we all are now familiar with, because of the current stage of the planet we live on, mutations are quite common amongst viruses. Take something like the flu or common cold, and it mutates over a year. Take things like HIV, and it mutates within literal days of suspension of therapy. The fact is, viruses, when coming into contact with cells, will adapt to their surroundings like anything else that's alive, despite it not really being, alive. Judging by the fact that this disease is airborne and mutates, the first progenitor characteristic that I would have to assume is that it is an RNA virus. RNA viruses are very mutagenic based on their virulence history, and this is an evolutionary trait that we carry on. Next, while some viruses have seemingly become airborne spontaneously, it's not mega common for this to happen. However, this particular virus at first was much more controlled and likely required touch to be picked up, which means it lingered on the surfaces. However, over time, the viruses would adapt to become more airborne, throwing it outside of the realm of control of the PFC. To create a virus that you know for a fact will result in the ending of millions of people, and then not even have a vaccine countermeasure to something of your own design is so ridiculous that it hurts my brain. This virus will also go on to hurt many other brains of many other people in a variety of ways, so let's talk about disease progression for a moment to explain some of the symptoms that we see within those that are infected. We know when a person is first infected, black veins will begin spreading out past that point of injury, whether it be from a bite, sting, or scratch. Depending on locality and if major organs or blood supplies are in the general area, the disease could progress quicker. In the case of the scratches in the abdomen, as well as likely biting concerning Thomas's group member, within a day he was rapidly changing as the virus moved likely to his abdominal aorta and intestinal tract. Here would have access to high amounts of blood supply. This is also why we see him throwing up the black goo and blood that we see just under the surface of the skin. Seemingly, the virus attacks the blood vessels of people, damaging them and causing a coagulation of blood to repair those vessels. However, it would appear to be much more adhesive than standard blood clots, as many of these clots breaking loose would cause strokes and heart attacks leading to the end of the host. That said, as the virus continues spreading up the blood, more blood vessels will become infected and then change in appearance. Eventually, the virus will begin to invade the lungs of the person and then make its way into the brain. By now, the body would know it's under attack and begin releasing countermeasures. At first, this activates the innate immune system, and here white blood cells would try to attack, but likely be infected themselves. However, inflammation would begin first as a way to counter the spreading of the virus. Now, when it enters the lungs, this is the coughing that we see. Not only can you vomit up this black goo and blood, but you're likely also coughing up blood, which is causing a form of pneumonia. Within the brain of a person, it would likely result in meningitis first, which would immediately begin to sort of induce the early symptoms that we know of. These symptoms are changes in personality such as irritability, unprovoked anger, indifference, and depression, decreased cognitive abilities like difficulty in decision-making, learning new tasks, and loss of short-term memory, as well as problems with balance and involuntary facial movements. These are all calling cards of inflammation and In some, concerning real life, aggression and depression are a horrible reality. After a virus moves past the blood-brain barrier, however, there it affects neurons as much as it does with blood. Usually the blood-brain barrier is there to keep pathogens from entering the brain, but viruses are particularly small, which is also how they likely have remained airborne. This allows them to enter the brain. Once there, neural tissue degradation would start, adding to these problems. Involuntary facial movement would also be activation of neural pathways and motor neurons as they either burst from viral load or are being stimulated by the virus itself. The problems with balance would also be these same key neurons in the ears being destroyed, resulting in the mind-body disconnection, because the brain wouldn't really be able to orient itself effectively. And one time I had vertigo, which is basically where your ears aren't recording where your eyes think that they are. Good God, I've never been that dizzy or nauseous. It sounds like an awful way to go. But the virus doesn't stop there. Usually your body does one of a few things. Either you are immune, partially immune, with your own biology or serums being administered, or you are completely screwed and susceptible to disease like most of humanity is. So let's talk about option 3 real quick. We'll get to those others soon enough. When a person is succumbing to the virus, it can take days for older adults and something like weeks or months for younger people. Essentially, the younger, the better. Well, that actually sounds pretty familiar to present day, doesn't it? As the virus continues to degrade your neural abilities, eventually you begin having this damage mount in the cerebrum. Human cerebrums are responsible for our higher thought and control our more baser instincts from the lower portions of our brain. With this no longer in check, it will result in stronger symptoms for those reaching advanced stages. Muscle spasms, disorganized or aggressive speech, auditory hallucinations, severe paranoia, dementia, sudden aggression, and self-mutilation are all extremely common. And a lot of these can be explained with the idea of schizophrenia. As brain tissue around the ventricles of schizophrenic brain continues to degrade, this can result in hallucinations, paranoia, speech functionality, or self-mutilation in some cases. Now, take that specific disease and multiply it out to way worse effects since the entire brain becomes degraded. You begin to see how this could be a problem. With the brain literally melting in the skull, no part of it appears to be spared in favor of other areas. The virus does not appear to play favorites and instead attacks the entire organ as a whole. However, instincts are kind of hard to terminate as long as the body's still functional and living. However, thought would begin to degrade until finally they become something known as the gone, which means every ounce of humanity that has really been in them is gone, and whoever that person was originally is no longer there. So people have devolved into cannibals only because of availability. In reality, they will eat anything to keep themselves alive, as seen with rats. If it moves, it's food. With this, considering humans are around mostly because everywhere else is a freaking desert, then damages within their brains make them see humans not as what they once were. Really, they're just seen as nutrition. That's why humans can be outbreeding. They're entering their latest stages of infection. They do not appear to utilize the time. Instead, they sit where they are until the sensory information is given. So what I call inspire. They used to be positive, that they refer to one another, seeing as Jensen was infected, but those who were infected were deeply turned and then become him. For those who receive the serum partially from their age, it was not as fast as others because they received that craptacular serum that you recently, in which case they will succumb in hours. As with Galley's boss, time in his brain to get no effects as he may not have received the serum for that time. Blinded in one eye, his attention is also this. He lost him to actually right to end himself in the wall. That's what you gotta do is son. By the way, just not caring. Should be different. Speaking of specific symptoms, another thing that you need to notice is walls of the skin of someone's infection in later stages. Have growths in the blood vessels due to damage of this virus, but also growths as well. Like the virus some individuals will have their DNA altered to the point that the original cells produce changes drastically. This may be why they see particles being built after this infection. This may explain cancer cells. As I mentioned in my video, growths in really severe skin exodus, cells are interesting things. Take a human cell outside the body and it is hard to provide without the body, the cells will die unless under stringent laboratory requirements, and even then, there's no guarantee. Cancer is different. Henrietta Lacks in 1951 visited a doctor where she was diagnosed with a malignant tumor in her cervix. She ended up passing away that same year when her cancer cells were harvested. Today, we actually hold a lot of medical advancements to those cells. Key here is, dang, those cells are still alive and able to grow without the body as their DNA was altered. summation, cancer doesn't play for Team multicellular organism anymore. It seemingly desires to exist in a more primitive form of eukaryotic cell, basically being a single-celled organism, but still.
They have a gift. Help them open it.
But still, really has no issue with sucking up nutrients from your body. Cancer is a biological piece of shit. Sorry, really hate cancer. Anyhow, this may be what we're seeing with the infected, considering these almost cure-like cancers grow in space, and on others altogether the size of the person. No, it just comes to a recent scene is that Michael Jeff fired rockets to the mind is nice, but notice that it's only in the cells. Because of this, as loose as it is, likely nutrition is really not water that contributes to the cells. Some is actually continues to grow and begin to receive moisture from the environment, which can keep them alive. This may in some ways keep the host alive as nutrition is thus not being pipeline to the cells, keeping those cells alive, albeit in the state of down, and also keeping the human alive. I would call it human, not under normal circumstances, we would see this place. Cancer cells existing on some atmospheric influence and populations make it possible for humans to infect the air and surface and have their cancer cells circulating in their intoxication. Finally, we get to our immune people. It's interesting to hypothesize why these people would even be immune, considering that they do not appear to have a prior infection resulting in antibodies to combat the virus. The idea is postulated that their brains are creating an enzyme that adults just completely lack. As a result, a baby coming into contact with a virus would be more apt to be immune and survive it longer than somebody, say, in their 40s. But then this raises the question, how long is this person immune for? Only for as long as their brains produce the enzyme, or are they really just screwed as they get older? Well, I believe it's possibly that, but also a combination of their immune system still needing to come into play. The idea of children are not just small adults is paramount to understand this virus. Children, biologically, differ in many ways from adults, so much so that the medicine of pediatrics exists, because treating them is completely different than treating adults. For instance, the blood-brain barrier that we enjoy as adults isn't even completely developed in children until about a year of age. So taking medicine for them is completely different and going to have different effects than it does in adults. Not to mention, barriers may be more or even less prevalent in children than adults, meaning that an overdose or underdose is much more likely. So with those who are immune, however, there appears to be a difference amongst them than their peers. Those born around the same time are not just immune forever. While they may have fared better as a child if they caught the disease because of the mystery enzymes in their brain, this doesn't mean as an adult that they are protected. In the case of Newt, as a young adult, while he was able to hold out for longer than, say, a full-grown adult being infected, ultimately he would succumb to this disease. Brenda was saved by Mary's cure, but interestingly, they apparently needed Thomas's blood. In my mind, this is actually a pretty easy one. What I believe is happening is not only that the enzymes in the brain protecting the nerve tissue of children are keeping them alive, but also still being confirmed to have been infected. Those who had enough of this enzyme to clear the infection, or at least protect their neurons from being infected, were left with crucial things in their bloodstreams known as antibodies. The trilogy mentions how the enzymes in the brain cannot be replicated and therefore must be harvested. But then why need only people? Because the enzymes only serve as a temporary form of resistance. Otherwise, you could just have a baby and then just scoop out the enzymes from his brain, right? Probably not the most ethical thing, but then again, they are putting young teenagers in a maze with monsters, so I don't think ethics really concerns them. Anyhow, as you age, you lose those enzymes, as seen with the rest of the young adults who still get infected. Thomas and the others, however, are different because likely they were infected with the virus some time ago, had the enzymes needed to resist, and were able to develop antibodies to the virus. It appears fairly rare, though, too. It may take quite a bit of these enzymes to protect the brain enough and render the virus inert, which may be why those kids who were younger didn't do as well as others who were younger and then fell to the virus in the early part of it being released. Some may not have been infected at all, which only gave the young adults a partial resistance to the virus as they had some of the enzymes left, considering they were not very old yet. And still some were completely immune, having been inoculated during the portion of their life where they were able to overcome the virus and have an effective immune response to it, giving them the antibodies to this disease. This would be why the vaccines William is testing out are not very effective. Having a fundamental misunderstanding of their own viruses, infection, and immunological response put them on their heels when mutated. Instead, deciding to go after the brain enzymes as a cure rather than the antibodies, which I have to say, they couldn't figure that out. It seems like humanity in this timeline is doomed to fail. But anyhow, I want to thank you guys for watching this long video. If you enjoyed, leave a like
three astronauts. It's not Spoon, Nicholas Goodnow, and Nicole McTavish. Thank you, guys. Next, I want to thank our scientists. Skilled, Tapaj, and Titan Screamer, as well as our residents Brock Taco 89, James Wiley, Chiselberries, Ryan King, Sasha E.D., Some Red Dude, Barefoot Lycan, and Travis Gray. For the rest of my patrons, I thank you as well. Your help goes a long way towards keeping this channel running. Alright, so that's going to do it for me. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see y'all next one.
At Walmart, save on thousands of gifts for everyone on your list. The savings are here all month long. Plus, get delivery on your gifts in as fast as 1 hour, right up to Christmas Eve. Shop Walmart online or in store today.
Earn 5% cash back on travel purchase through Chase with Chase Freedom Unlimited. Earn 5% on our cabbage. Hello, cash back. Earn big time with Chase Freedom Unlimited with no annual fee and all cash back. Chase, make it.
In the events of The Last of Us, in the movie The Girl with All the Gifts, the features are pretty blatantly. For reasons we are not yet privy to, children are being kept in cells and transported around, completely strapped with wheelchairs. You see, outside of the complex, the other people who have become infected with certain blue fungus that has wrapped around their brains like an IV drip over. In adults, it produces animalistic, sexual driven beasts that can attack anything that moves and they can smell. Here, Psycho doesn't appear to make some differences, but we'll get to that later on in the video. But these kids, for some reason, are able to resist their infections, and it makes them almost 90% immune. Right up until they get hungry, which in that case, the infection will take over, and then they become really no different from mindless adults. So in today's episode, we'll talk about this movie that I probably should watch, which basically completely and utterly falls in line with every hypothesis I came up with for in The Last of Us, ironically enough. But I'll also say that I did love this movie. Book came out in 2014, movie came out in 2016. But according to a tweet I put out, The Last of Us and The Girl with All the Gifts just happened to be a coincidental timing in an era when humans were completely obsessed with zombies. Also, if I sound a little weird, yeah, I kind of noticed that too. Over the last 4 or 5 days, I've been kind of hoarse. I'm saying cold, but sweating. It's been not a great time to get sick. Anyhow, we'll be discussing the infection that they have, why the children appear to be immune, which should kind of dip into neuroplasticity in humans, why adults don't share the same ability. Alright, let's get to it. As usual, there will be a timestamp up on the screen. If you want to bypass a summary of this movie, well then aren't you just awesome, bro? Who's seen every movie? I had no idea that this thing even existed, and I usually pride myself on watching movies. For everyone else, let's find out why we must really be testing out our species' ability to resist cordyceps, considering we just kind of make tea out of it and stuff. We open up our story with a young girl counting in her cell. You can't hear it because it's usually just me blathering on about something, but trust me, she's counting. Soldiers begin banging on cell doors with the other inmates in the early morning to wake everyone up and get them into their restraint chairs. Melanie happily jumps into hers and gets to strap herself down where she can. Soldiers walk in with their handhelds pointed at her, which would probably make people feel a little uneasy, but appears quite commonplace wherever they are. The children are wheeled down the corridor, to which the sergeant mentions to the private, shouldn't talk to it. Strange, but whatever. The children are then lined up in a room with soldiers as a nurse walks in and begins to roll call them, taking preliminary metrics. After she's done, the real teacher walks in, Miss Justino, who begins her lesson of teaching the children. Melanie brings up how they never finished reading the story earlier, to which the teacher obliges and begins. We begin reading the story about Pandora's box, how all the evils were contained within, but also so is hope. Everyone is returned back to their cells for the day, and the children are fed worms. Delicious. The next morning, another doctor comes by with a logic problem, asking what number are you thinking about, and how do you figure out about Schrodinger's cat? You know, the usual things that she actually asks children. I mean, considering the kid had no prior knowledge of anything, she actually answers exactly how I would. She also picks the number 1 through 20, to which she answers 13. The children are then pulled back out. Number 13 is missing. Melanie is the only person that asks why 13 isn't in class. The teacher deflects by asking them to write a story, even though they don't know any, to which Miss Justino, motherly instincts, go her a little too hard, and she touches the top of Melanie's head. Soldiers burst in at this point, yelling at her and then show her what can happen. The sergeant spits on his arm and then rubs it in, removing some unknown compound. Now, I have a slight issue with this scene, so they can smell her skin, but they can't smell like our spit and breath. I just don't get that. But we get our first sight as to what happens. The children start going haywire, trying to reach out and bite and smell wafts of the air, activating the almonds of all the children as their eyes glaze over and they become much more bloodthirsty. Returned back to their cells, Melanie taunts the sergeant and is then left in a restraint chair as a result. The teacher eventually goes back to her cell and finds that she has been left like this. She releases her, but apparently she's not wearing enough of the blocker. Melanie has a freak out trying to bite her, but is able to warn the teacher before she fully transforms into a monster. The doctor shows back up to find the blocker gel on the ground and then questions Melanie. Melanie doesn't say anything, but then she asks if she will pick a number between 1 through 20. She now picks 4, and that just happens to be her number. Later on, her cell lights up from an unexpected visit from the soldiers later, and she is brought to the doctor. If it wasn't obvious already, the number she was picking would directly correspond to who was getting picked and biopsied. Moving up to the elevator and the outside, it appears as though the complex is being mobilized. The Hungries appear en masse outside of the gate, which the military doesn't seem to have enough resources, so an emergency vaccine awareness is conducted on Melanie. The doctor tells her what's happening and then injects her to knock her out. She's about to scoop out some brains when they move her to the table. The teacher shows up saying that she's done with this. The doctor attempts to tell her that this isn't a normal surgery. She knows how to build a vaccine, but the teacher doesn't care and then breaks the bone and then gets some mace to the face. Definitely gonna need those eyes since the base is currently under siege. While they waste time explaining some nonsense, the Hungries are broken through the gates and they attempt to close the shutters. So, Matt, pause it here real quick for me for a moment. Let's do a freeze frame. Okay, so let me ask you a question about a zombie invasion. Glass behind you, changing in light behind you. Do you A, keep your head on a swivel, making sure that those are friendly so you're not about to get eaten, or B, sit like a complete oblivious brain? If you chose A, then you're wrong, because B is what Alpha Chads do. Very nicely done, nurse. The Hungries break through the glass before the shutters can close and infect her. The doctor fights back, but slices open her hand in the process, and there'll be a problem later. The nurse changes quickly, probably within about 30 seconds, and the doctor runs. Alright, so, slight issue here. She slices open her hand, and now you might be thinking, oh, well, she got the Hungry's blood on her hand, so she's gonna change. Actually, she didn't, so just know that. Anyways, moving on. Melanie wakes back up on the table and finds that the nurse is searching for anyone near her. She grabs a knife and then frees herself as the nurse licks blood up off the floor. Melanie exits the compound to find that it's all out war on the surface. Hungries everywhere and soldiers dropping like Christmas ham on my plate in 7 days. She sees that some soldiers are punching the teacher and then takes them out with throat bites and lays down after her as she eats their flesh. As she does, the teacher gets back up and grabs her. With her bloodlust satiated, she picks her up to carry her, but as she does, an armored transport runs down in view and she gets in. The doctor, soldiers, teacher, and Melanie all GTFO as everything devolves into total chaos. Driving far enough away from the base, the soldiers notice that Melanie is in the back and they release her. As they discuss what to do, the doctor mentions just putting her in the wheel well, to where she gets smacked in the next week by the teacher. As the doctor has mentioned before surgery, she actually thinks that these are just presenting as children, but are not actual children. They're simply driven by the fungus to be this way to get into a group of adults and infect, which the doctor and I are going to have to disagree on that one, but we will get to that later. So they decide to put her in the turret chair on top of the roof. Moving through the woods, they decide that they need to make a move through London to get to Beacon, which is a safe haven for the military. They move to get water to fill their canteens, and the sergeant sets suppressors on, to which one soldier forgot. The cracking of the stick causes him to fire in that direction, which alerts all the Hungries in the woods of their location. They begin their attack, and they end up losing the scout soldier as a result, as his arm was bent, and he quickly turns and the sergeant takes him out. Back in the armored vehicle, they wait it out, and as they do, they discover that the scuffle resulted in them hitting the fuel lines for the truck. So now they're on foot as they begin to trek through the woods. Moving through the outskirts of London, they take a look outside and they see hundreds within the city limits. Actually, scratch that. We're like thousands of people. They're just standing in place. It's densely populated, but it's the only way through. Not like they could have just, walked around London or anything. I'm pretty sure there's an outskirts of London, right? They slowly move their way through with the E-blocker and their suppressors on quietly as possible, as not to alert the horde. As they were walking through, a lone infected is seen pushing her stroller through the crowd. Apparently, it was the last thing she was doing before being infected, which may show that old memories are instincts. You
hurts a few members of the board. And I break away to say this, a freaking suppressor is still extremely loud. I mean, you can still go deaf. It'll go deaf with those things. It's not as quiet as a whisper, and I kind of found it hilarious. Like, literally, that whole board would be on them right now. Okay, so moving on. They're now alerting a few as they go along, but successfully get into a building or shelter. This building appears to have been a hospital of some sort, specifically a maternity ward. And now, we get some exposition on the children. As the outbreak continued, mothers of the neonatal babies were infected. As they were, the children adopted the fungus through the placenta, which in turn infected the babies. When the mothers were found, they were indeed completely heart, lungs, intestines, everything on the inside was gone, and only the babies were left. They were eaten by the children and hollowed out. This eccentric root, as said by the doctor, is why she does not believe these things are human and instead completely driven by the fungus. Melanie is informed that she was found the same way as well. As the hospital is cleared, they wait for morning to come and then see how they should proceed through the area. Hundreds of infected are in the street, which makes it virtually impassable. Melanie mentions how she can get through and find something to lead the horde away, considering they have no interest in her. They give her new clothes and then send her on her way to try to find a way to get the horde to move away. As she walks through, she is correct that they indeed do not care at all. She eventually gets out of the densely populated area and then finds a void kitty, which is sad because that's like Mrs. Mittens, which if you didn't know, Mrs. Mittens is my kittens. But she eats it, and this implies that it's not just human pheromones that are triggering the fungus, but quite literally all animals that exist. As she moves through an apartment, she finds a dog left over. She picks it up and then takes it back to the horde, which they smell it and they begin following it out of the area as the dog goes out of there. Melanie shows back up, covered in blood, to the disgust of everyone standing there, and they exit the building and continue on. Moving through an overgrown London, they eventually find roads that are completely unpassable again, but go with the same idea as before. Why fix what ain't broke? They give Melanie a radio and then tell her to report back when they find a more passable route. So she does, and then they walk through, and they find what looks like the remnants of people in a group. They're all leaned against a street lamp with stalks coming out of their eyes and their faces. As they move deeper into London, they actually find more and more of these people until ultimately they come across a large tower with hundreds of them. This tower has something completely new, the second stage of the fungal life cycle. Pods can be seen all over the vines ascending high into the tower. This greatly alarms Doctor because if these burst, fungal spores become airborne and infect that way, which would basically mean humanity is screwed. She says though that it's bad design and smacks it on the ground, which kind of seems like a bad idea to me, showing that they have no idea what it would take to open this pod. As luck would have it, however, they end up finding a mobile lab that has everything they need. The doctor by now is looking pretty sick and doses herself with antibiotics off screen. The sergeant tries to start the lab, but in luck, as they try to radio for a beacon, Melanie starts to feel it, Mr. Krabs, and requests to go be let out to eat after the private gets far enough away to go look for food himself. Melanie purposely runs the other way as to avoid the private and then looks for anything in the area. She ends up finding some birds and eats. As the private moves through, it's clear that there are children in this area and they're all feral. Melanie actually ends up running into a tribe of these kids and she watches them from afar, with one scout returning to inform the tribe that an adult has been found and they're not infected. They all take off as Melanie runs back, and it's clear the doctor isn't doing so hot either. She mentions how she got blood poisoning from the cut on her hand and she requests the teacher let her take a vaccine before she bites the dust as the antibiotics are not working quick enough. The private finally finds a store, goes inside, opens his pack and radio because that's smart. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you things are a little dark in here. I know, it's just the movie. I don't know how to make this thing lighter, and I'm not really sure it's even possible, at least with the video editing stuff that we have. Melanie tells them that they need to go help the private now before it's too late. They take off. But the private is basically screwed at this point. Those cans he found outside were traps set by the kids. The lone child is seen eating a rat inside, which the private tries to help as he moves in further. But I can tell the ligaments on his knees were cut to prevent him from running. He pulls out a grenade saying that he will blow them all up, but then he doesn't. And my guy kind of just gets his guts eaten hardcore. So hardcore, in fact, that when those rescuers show up, you can just barely make out the light reflecting off his spine. Ouchies. So this part, honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, it kind of made me cringe. Exiting the shop, Melanie retorts that they're actually in a trap and find that the children are surrounding them. But since she's different, they don't immediately attack. She ends up yelling at them, which, again, all I could think was it just reminded me of this kid back in high school who would growl at people. Mega cringy. Just please do not ever be that person. Anyhow, she does completely beat the crap out of one kid with a bat who appears to have been the alpha.
survive? We will talk about that later. After completely annihilating the skull of the bad kid, the rest of the group were like, nah, I'm good, and back up. The teacher, Sergeant, and Melanie leave the area uninformed. As a result, getting back to the lab, as they run inside, the air is poisonous. Now, sort of. The doctor is able to knock everyone out by flooding the interior with laughing gas or some sort of anesthesia. And as a result, they pass out. She drags Melanie off to the table to begin brain scooping, and then Melanie wakes back up. She mentions how she held her breath and doesn't have to breathe as much as everyone else. She would regularly actually hold her breath and count to 1,000 when she was in her cell. The doctor begins trying to reason with her, saying that if she wants the teacher to live, she needs to do this. Let her make the vaccine. Melanie obliges at first, but as the doctor continues to talk, sort of about how the spores and how they could be released, Melanie decides to destroy the threat instead. Now, this is just my interpretation. It looks like she's trying to destroy the threat. Maybe she's just like, screw it, dude, bring on the new world. But either way, things don't turn out too well. She locks everyone in the lab as the doctor gives chase, which is a bad idea, because the doctor's then eaten by the feral children in an almost pitch-black scene. I know, it's dark. Melanie lights up the tower, and this is what it actually took. Not water, not sunlight, fire. Pods open, making the spores airborne as they drift and waft over the entire city. The sergeant actually exits the lab to look for Melanie and the doctor. But at this point,
Well, their service to their community must one day come to an end. Our mission to serve them does not. We're there with them, to and through retirement. Mission school.
But at this point, he became infected by the airborne spores. She ends up taking him out at his request when he turns and then goes back to the lab. With the entire planet now screwed, it would appear that the children who have adapted the fungus are going to be the only ones left, as the air is now toxic to all adults who are currently infected. But with all the evil things out of the box now, hope still does exist as the teacher continues to meet with the feral children, Melanie keeping them in line in hopes of teaching them. Stuck in the mumbled lab, she can never leave and must get this generation up to speed on how to communicate. But humanity is definitely returning the monkey at this point, or optimistically, the Stone Age. Which, if you guys didn't know, chimpanzees have officially entered the Stone Age along with orangutans. Just thought that was a little interesting side fact I would throw in there for you guys. With that summary wrapped up, the first thing we must cover is what are we currently under attack from, and how does this impact the species it's currently wreaking havoc on, and how will this translate to humans? Well, the fungus we are currently dealing with in this movie is Cordyceps unilateralis, or just the Cordyceps fungus for short. This fungus is actually pretty insidious. For now, it appears to only infect insects. It gets into their heads and makes them clamp down on leaves high above the colony, to which a stalk will appear from the pod. This pod will burst, showering other ants in the area with the same Cordyceps, which in turn takes them over and causes them to do the same thing. The fungus has shown that it can annihilate entire colonies quite easily. Should ants be acting strangely or infected but not yet presenting the stalks, other ants will actually quarantine them out of the colony if possible in an attempt to preserve themselves. Now, an ant is undoubtedly much less complex of an animal than a human, but if you attack the right areas, it's all really the same, just nerves and control of movement. Considering the Cordyceps has shown that it can cause ants to move to a location that are favorable for the Cordyceps and clamp the jaws of the ants as well, there must be not so much an understanding by the fungus, but simply patterns that have returned favorably and allowed it to flourish. Because for those Cordyceps that did not use these patterns, they didn't make it this far. And you know what we call that? Evolution! Humanity in this realm of the girl with all the gifts is currently being ransacked by this population of Cordyceps that has really learned how to interact with the human brain and the nervous system in a way that completely overrides the control that we have over our own bodies, which is so ridiculously easy, you never wonder how animals even evolved. It all really comes down to just neurochemicals. Now, the timing of the neurochemicals is a little more difficult, but the fact is that you can flood neurochemicals in the body, it does produce effects. So if you affect the body's ability to release chemicals, and instead, let's say the Cordyceps wraps itself around the brainstem of a person, it can actually take over and influence in a way how a person moves and interacts with the environment, or maybe doesn't interact with the environment. The Cordyceps clearly in the brain is releasing a neurochemical of its own that is able to influence the actual motor neurons of a person, which may also explain why people are taken over so quickly by the fungus. So, starting with newly infected adults, first thing I want to cover is infection time. So when the soldier gets infected in the woods, it took, 30 seconds, right? A bite to the arm. Why is that? This isn't like a fast-acting virus or bacteria, but that's exactly why it's perfect. This particular Cordyceps is already adapted to the human nervous system, which coming from these specific points of the mouth region of the person who bit him is also perfect. So the reason it is so fast-acting is after it enters the bloodstream, the fungus is then pumped all throughout the body. In fact, in hospitals, this is why any injection to knock you out reaches the brain in seconds. Once the Cordyceps has reached the brain, likely is able to move past the blood-brain barrier and into the nervous space itself. itself. Once there, it's already releasing neurochemicals compatible with our own chemoreceptors. The jerky movement we see him doing is these new chemicals entering the brain and beginning to take control. This results in the sergeant taking the shot as he begins gnashing his teeth at him now. His meat suit is in full control of the cordyceps, or at minimum, mostly in control of the cordyceps. These presentations of symptoms likely only get worse from here. Well, it's not likely. They absolutely do get worse. Because after you are newly infected, the cordyceps continues to flourish within your body. We see in the cities, people are almost borderline catatonic. Standing together is an interesting concept, which we'll explain momentarily, but as they stand there, they're not moving. They just appear to be almost asleep. And here's why. With the cordyceps in control of the brain at this point, and the growth it's likely undergone as a result, the brain damage is assumed to be absolute. During the initial phases of the brain, being infected is still largely intact. The person absolutely understands what's happening, but can't control their body. However, as the years pass and the fungus grows within the skull of this person, this puts pressure on the cerebrum of this person. As the pressure is applied and is destroyed neural tissue, it is extremely delicate. This is why adults who have been infected for a long time do not appear to have higher thoughts, as we see with the person in the hospital. They're just sort of threatened. Thrashing about, can't understand what happened to it, why it's stuck. The globe specifically is completely necrosed. This person that they once were is gone. That said, instincts run deep, literally. As we evolve, we move outwards. This has resulted in something known as the lizard brain at our most core. And then you have the mammalian brain built outwards from that, then the primate, and the human, which is us. The lizard brain houses all of our instincts. Most the evolution to destroy these vital instincts unshackled by logical reason. The human is our most animalistic form, which comes to the surface, eat, and survive. Possibly socialization is still there, which is why they stay together. There's also another instinct in there, but cordyceps would not need this to be done. Essentially, that's it. Which the cordyceps absolutely obliges to keep the person alive in ways. So you can actually say in adulthood that is in fact a symbiotic relationship to a degree, just not in a way that's beneficial to the consciousness or beneficial to the bodies. I actually had this argument with my last husband. I mentioned how really this relationship is kind of got bent out of shape. So we can present the wisdom. If your body can survive, and whatever makes you, you is not the thing where you ever really necessary. Multicellular organisms exist because they're beneficial together and separate. Remember that consciousness, whether divine or mundane, is simply us surviving even better. If we can survive without our consciousness due to the addition of another species, then that by definition is a symbiotic relationship. Granted, I'd rather be in the driver's seat personally, so I would say don't go down in the comments getting upset over that. I mean, I will give you this. The cordyceps that we know of in the real world is quite a parasitic fungus from insects, but that's because it results in the host's destruction, not their preservation, as seen in this movie with humans. It's clear to me that based upon the rust of the buildings, the overgrowth seen in the streets, and just the sheer state of the homes in the city, that this infection took place a while ago, not to mention the ages of the children. Because of that, I can only come to the conclusion that while the consciousness of adults is destroyed, the fungus is keeping their bodies alive. Likely anyone who is newly infected in this state has nothing that they're going to be able to eat and will expire before the fungus is able to keep them alive or grow to the point that it might be able to keep them alive. And that might be what's surrounding the towers and the streets. Those still standing were likely infected early, they were able to eat, allowing the fungus to grow and flourish to the point that it was able to keep them alive and their bodies fed. Now, this feeding at a certain point isn't sustainable. Again, like I mentioned in the Last of Us video, for a while, the addition of new meat broken down in the stomach would sustain our meat suits and the cordyceps, but eventually, the cordyceps would be forced to break down the body that sustains itself. In this process, it would feed the body to the body, but there's only so many calories within us. Eventually, not even the cordyceps would be able to keep those infected alive, and then would drop like any other person. This would explain, however, why people are just standing there with their eyes closed, not reacting to the environment. They are in a vegetative state to not expend energy that they may not even have. And it's also possible that they're standing close together not because of just instinct, but they're getting ready to become one of these super nests. Now, all this was fine and good up until the mother pushing the stroller comes along. This person in particular appears different. Why is she moving when no others are? Well, I think it's probably because of the lizard instincts. Protect the young. Likely when she was infected, she was running with the stroller, and this drive was so strong that as part of her brain kept communicating to run with the child, it would do so even after the cordyceps took over. That portion of the brain is likely still sending that signal to run with no information from the upper portion of the brain to communicate to turn that off, and this would have kept her moving until her eventual collapse. So, with our decent understanding of what's happening to the infected and why they're acting the way they are, how does the cordyceps respond to the environment? Well, in a few ways, actually. Despite the hilarity with the silencers being quieter than a whisper, their ability to move through the area with all those infected could actually be feasible, believe it or not. With the cerebrum highly damaged, so too would their senses be. So the optic nerve runs on the interior of the brain into the back of the skull where the occipital lobe sits, and